Good morning, and welcome to another episode of the Type 15 podcast. I'm your host, as always, Ryan, and I'm joined by Marcus and Tom. And this week, we are joined by a very special, perhaps our most special guest thus far. This is a man who said that he would only join the pod if we gave his live drama play, Thank Gonski You're Here, a plug. He's the MVP from the Putney Rangers AA5 undefeated minor premiership team. The man voted the best Peruvian left back in the Northwest Sydney Super League second year running. It's Brandon Diaz. Welcome, Brandon.
Gotta be Brandon Diaz.
Thank you. Wow, what an honour to be on the pod.
It's great to have you here, Brandon. We have to start the show by saying congratulations on your grand final victory over the weekend. That must be an amazing feeling. How did it feel to score a penalty in the game?
Oh, well, I think as you know, you watched the game. It wasn't actually a scored penalty. It was a goal from open play, from a save penalty. But, you know, nonetheless, a great feeling, especially putting it on Pats. Can't beat it.
Yeah, fantastic.
Wait, can I just ask, were you trying to put it further into the corner, or were you just being real, I don't know, were you trying to like wig out the keeper and trying to put it down the middle? Because I couldn't really see the angle.
Yeah, I was trying to wig out the keeper, make it seem like I was going right, and then just place it to the left. It didn't really happen that way.
It had too much pace on it.
It was a goal. That's all that counts at the end of the day. So well done, Brandon. We'll talk more about your grand final victory in the Meet the Manager section later on. But it's been the international break. So it's been a little while since we've had a look at the game week results. So let's have a look at the head-to-head results from game week 4. Big Balls Bales got his first win of the season. His score of 39, which interestingly was also his ATAR score, is only his second highest total of the season, but proved enough to get the win over Lee Cartwright. Lee Cartwright, your 91 points seems like a lifetime ago, my friend. And worryingly, you've dropped into the beer zone. Danny Ings's blank against West Brom is the second week in a row that Lee has captained a striker against West Brom, only for them to blank. Lee, learn your lesson, mate. Tom, I want to ask you real quick, do you think Lee's fantasy team performances have suffered due to the recent uncovering of his intimate relationship with Gladys Berejiklian?
I'm an independent woman with my own finances. I would never, ever, ever consider my position in relation to someone else's in that regard.
Oh, that's a good question. I actually think it's the other way around. I think Lee's fantasy score caused the Berejiklian relationship to be ousted in the public eye. I think it actually happened the other way around. Yeah.
Oh, that is fascinating, Tom.
Yeah.
I'd love to dig into more, and we'll have to see how this plays out over the coming weeks. But let's move on. Lucas is doing so well. He took a -8 this week, but it did not cost him as he swept aside the pretender, Tom Job, to continue his unbeaten start to the season. Unfortunately,
Our most hated guest on the pod, should we say?
He is. We had so much hate in the comments, we actually had to delete a lot of the comments about Tom Job.
That's true.
But unfortunately for Lucas, he took out Son, who most people believed was injured, only for the Korean to score a massive 18 points. Lucas is smashing it atop the overall table, and mathematically has confirmed his place in the beer receiver zone for Group 1.
Receiver.
Worryingly, though, for Lucas, State of Origin is just around the corner, and the impending theft of Lucas's car may wreak havoc with his fantasy. If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
After a strong start, the pretender, the most hated guest on the pod, Tom Job, has lost 2 from 2. Everton are on fire right now, but poor Tommy's only asset from Everton is Richarlison, who went off injured after 25 minutes. Worryingly, Tom is persisting with Willian. After 14 points in the opening game, Willian has blanked 3 times in a row, begging the question, how long can Tom put up with a misfiring Willie? Marcus, you know Tom well. Is he the type of person who can put up with a misfiring Willie?
I don't know. He always kept his Willie pretty dry at the man house. But I will say we did have a lot of Willie parties. Lee Cart wrong. He did not approve.
Oh, interesting. Lee Cartwright's getting a lot of hate in the chat.
Our second most hated member of this guest on this pod.
We've only had 3 or 4. Wow.
Yeah.
I've almost saved this as a shortcut, so I don't have to keep typing it out each week. But Marcus's Big Daddies again showed they know when they need to turn up.
Amen, brother.
The Big Daddies have scored well below the game week average 2 out of 4 times this season, and have an overall score lower than Lee, Tom Job, and the Snake. But the Big Daddies have won 4 from 4. And again, like Lucas, mathematically confirmed their place in the beer receiver zone.
Wait, who's the Snake, Ryan? Just remind us again.
Nikolai.
Nikolai's the Snake, right? Yep.
Perrin Knight slumps to 0-4 and has mathematically confirmed his place in the beer owing zone for Group 1. Pez's team looks good on paper, but is consistently failing to perform for the first fleeter. Rumour has it he's enlisted the support of Michael Jennings' doctor to help inject some new life into his team. Kingis Paxton was experiencing heart palpitations on Saturday night as the deadline passed, and he realised that he'd forgot to change his team. With the captaincy stuck on Werner and a failing Lucas Moira in his side, Parley watched the weekend's games with nerves, expecting Geordie Armsworth to topple him. But Geordie, who has the lowest score of anyone in the league, could only limp his way to 34 points. He even had 12 points on his bench, which would have given him the win. Brandon, you actually went to school with Geordie. Was he always such a disappointing underperformer, or do you attribute these performances to some schoolyard trauma?
Well, I definitely think it's schoolyard trauma. Back in, I think it was 08, 09, Geordie made the bold decision to drop from the top English class to the second, where I was, all for the sake of his Marconi Stallions career.
Look how that ended.
Exactly. Wow, this is a trend, a consistent underperformer. Far out, schoolyard trauma. Man, it's good to have you here, Brandon, keeping Geordie accountable. The Fantasy King, he broke his losing streak, finally, with a comfortable 2-point win over Sam Mears. Mearsy rode his luck as one of the few owners of Son in the team, and he also got 15 points from the penalty merchant Jorginho. But it wasn't enough as my captaincy pick of Sterling came through with the gold. Another man joining Perrin in the beer owing zone is Simeon. Simeon's son had 18 points and St. Maximin 12 points, but both of them were on the bench. Absolute heartbreak for Simeon, who led Tom, our very own Tom, all weekend, except for the very last match when Liverpool played Aston Villa and Tommy's Jack Grealish came to the rescue with 24 points, giving Tom the win over Simeon. Tom, I believe you contacted Jack Grealish on Instagram, sending him great thanks. Have you had any response?
No response, but it's, I noticed that he posted a story actually after I sent him a message. So I know it's not because he wasn't checking his phone. He must have just not seen the message. That's okay.
Well, disappointing. Maybe try one without your top on, see if that gets his attention.
Might do that.
Flying under the radar is Luke Wheeler. Well done, Luke Wheeler. You've got back-to-back wins, this time over the Snake. Since playing the wild card, Lukey has been on fire. The big dog didn't even use a transfer this week, and he still gets the win. So he's got 2 free transfers for game week 5. He's in a good position. Well done, Luke Wheeler. Speaking of wild cards, it doesn't get much worse or better than this. Nikolai Paxton played his wild card this week for a total of 38 points. And he even removed Son, who scored 18, to rub further salt into the wound. Tom, you actually predicted Nikolai to come 3rd overall this season. Are you starting to rethink that prediction now?
I am, and I'm rethinking a lot more than just that prediction about Nikolai. He made a comment to me earlier in the week when LeBron James won his 4th title for the Lakers that LeBron wasn't the best player in the world, and it's making me rethink a lot about Nikolai, not just the prediction I made at the start of the season for him to come 3rd.
It's really calling into question this person's mental state.
Yeah, it is.
if he's making statements like that. But we press on. The huge story of the week is Brandon Diaz. His Sultana brand team becomes the first to score 100 points. Well done, Brandon. An incredible performance from Wilson, James Rodriguez, Salah, Grealish. You had it all. Well done. All scoring double-digit hauls. Brandon, you've got the highest total points of anyone in the league now, so you are crushing it. Well done. Your unfortunate opponent this week, Dan Baker, can count himself unlucky. Baker's score of 62 would have been enough to beat everyone else in the league, but he had to come up against you. Sources tell me Baker has activated his wild card. So if you're versing Baker this week, it'll be interesting to see how he lines up. Brian handed Dave Murray his first defeat of the season in a huge top-of-the-table clash. It was a low-scoring affair, though, with Brian's winning score of 48 only just hitting the worldwide average. Marcus, do you think Brian's Korean parents will be concerned that their son is only achieving average scores?
I think they grew accustomed to his averageness at school. And I think they were also a bit concerned about his wet willy. He also joined in the parties at the Man House that Lee Cartwright didn't approve. Remember, Lee Cartwright, the second most hated guest on this podcast.
Oh, geez. Man, we're seeing a lot of hate. Yeah, again, Lee Cartwright. I wonder how he's going to respond. Stand by for an essay. Dave Murray.
We want more essays.
No, we love it. Dave Murray recorded his lowest score of the season with only 29 points. Tom, do you see a connection between Dave's shockingly low score and the fact that he was away from his wife Sarah all week on a youth camp?
Maybe it might have been his misfiring decision to captain. Sarah often makes the best decisions about captaining, and we've seen that in the past. So if Sarah's there, Dave gets his captain's right, Dave gets the W. We'll usually so back at home this week, hopefully a W for Dave.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's see how having Sarah around impacts him in game week 5. That's game week 4. All the head-to-head results have been covered. But let's have a look back at our bold predictions from game week 4. Were we hot? Were we not? Tommy, over to you.
Yeah, so Tom Job was with us last week, or 2 weeks ago, but last episode of the podcast. And he predicted Mahrez from Man City to score a hat-trick against Leeds, but unfortunately he blanked and scored 2. So a misfiring prediction there. Now, many people listened to Marcus's prediction of Aubameyang to get a double-digit haul.
Good idea.
Was it though? He blanked with 2. Another misfiring prediction. Now, my prediction was the Everton and Brighton game would be 0-0, but the score was 4-2. And Daniel Calvert-Lewin, Maupay scored again. I said they wouldn't score, obviously.
What's his name?
Neil Maupay.
No, the first one.
Daniel Calvert-Lewin.
Dominic?
Is it Dominic or Daniel?
It was Daniel, bro.
DCL.
Is it Imposter who plays?
D cruciate ligament. A shocking prediction from me. And Ryan said that Castagna from Leicester would smash it, but he conceded 3 in a 3-0 loss to West Ham. So 4 terrible bold predictions. I think that's 2 weeks in a row of some pretty bad, poor, bold predictions. So we'll try and avenge that this week, I guess.
Yeah.
We must do better. We must do better. Speaking of better, Marcus, over to you for our Meet the Manager segment.
Oh, yes. I don't know if it's the worst part of the pod, but it's definitely another part of it. We're welcoming Brandon Sultana Brand Diaz to the pod. How does it feel to be here? Before you use the word honoured, after listening to that very long and tiresome intro, do you stand by that?
Well, I do stand by those comments, but everybody who said that they have been honoured to be on the pod has turned out to be in the top 4 most hated.
Yeah, so you know who's got... Well, I don't know. Actually, we should ask Ryan quickly. Ryan, who's been your favourite guest on this pod?
Or I'd say Dan Lee.
Lee. Okay. And what Lee did well was... Oh, he didn't even suck up to Ryan that much. So maybe you don't even need to suck up to Ryan. I don't know what's going to make you the most favourite guest on this show, but nonetheless, we're happy to have you here. I think the most pressing thing that I'm wondering is the grand final heroics that we were just discussing before. You were on the winning side of a grand final. When was the last time you won a grand final?
The year was 2015, I think. So it was a bit while back, half a decade.
And was it a big game? Was it a vanilla game? What was it like?
It was a bit vanilla, 0-0 in normal time. It was a bit tense on a terrible pitch, unlike the beautiful synthetic Christie Park.
Beautiful on the feet.
Exactly. But it was a 2-0 win in extra time with me grabbing the sealer in the 117th minute.
You just can't help yourself, can you? You got to get those grand final goals. So based on that, I believe it was the 18th minute of a grand final played on Sunday, you stepped up to take a penalty. And I know we were discussing it before. I know we were saying it was a goal from open play. When you were celebrating at the end, not at the end, after the goal, and it was a pretty subdued celebration. Was that the original plan, or were you planning a dead fish celebration after it went into the back of the net, or to the Pats fans, the cry, or were you thinking of the robot in front of the fans? What were you thinking?
Definitely the dead fish. I just wanted to give them the stare of shock that for some reason they were not expecting an equal game. Definitely, though, the celebration was helped by me not putting away the penalty first, and then with the huge sigh of relief that I got the rebound. But definitely not, definitely not the celebration I intended.
Yeah. If we were to relive that celebration, it was a bit of and you high-fived one or two guys and jogged back to halfway. So now, Brandon, that was the grand final heroics. What about the heroics of a Centurion from last week's FPL? I don't know if you've been crap the first 2 weeks and you just were biding your time, or do you think you just pulled it out and you're starting to understand the fabric of the game and what you got to do, or is it that you just got lucky?
Coming into such a prestigious league, it was definitely. I felt a bit overwrought at first, and I think the intensity of the fantasy play left me a bit shocked in the first 2 game weeks. But,
that's a good response.
Like a match fitness.
Yeah, exactly. The practice was out, and I went with the Moneyball approach at the start. No stars, but definitely just players that are going to get me goals and assists. Yeah. And 2 wins on the bounce. I'm feeling good.
You're buzzing. You're top of the league. I guess, because you were tipped by, I don't know if it was me, but someone definitely tipped you to be in the bottom 3. So I suppose you're showing to the haters that they can shove it.
It's probably Brian.
Probably Brian. Very Brian thing to say.
I reckon it's Geordie Armsworth.
And a Geordie thing. No, so are you saying that you back yourself now for a top 3?
That's a bold question. I'm sure the media will go wild at my response.
The media is 5 people in the chat.
And they will go off. But definitely just trying to finish as high as possible and put in good performances on the pitch. And
tell us what you really think.
Don't act like this is getting recorded for a podcast. Just act like we're talking on Zoom, like a regular chat. Do you think you're the best fantasy player that's ever graced this chat?
I'm aiming for top 5.
Yes, okay. But do you think you are the best? Are you better than the FPL King? Are you better than the Snake? Are you better than the Wet Willy Boy? Are you better than we got other characters? Are you the best?
There's a reason I'm named Sultana Brand, and then you are the Big Daddy. I'm definitely not the best. I don't get what's
You can't help but praise us. Well, I guess it's going to bode well for being not the most hated. Definitely, you're out of the bottom 2 most hated players. Guests on this pod.
Not in the relegation zone, that's for sure.
No.
Yeah, that's true. You're doing well, and like always, we're always glad to have you. The last question I actually wanted to ask was about Putney. That glorious year, All Age 5, 2018. Yeah, we plundered a bunch of, I don't know, crap soccer players, and we blew it before the grand final. When you think about that year, was that your favourite year of soccer?
It's pretty close to it.
Oh,
It's just a good group, bunch of good lads with some fun training sessions from a certain Ryan. But yeah,
it was good, not great.
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying. It was
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. You know,
It
maybe
was
just a
passable.
level above good, but not great, because we choked.
We did choke. Oh, yeah, but Brandon did steamroll I think Ryan already introduced it, steamrolled MVP, Golden Boot. This year he was Players Player of Super League, probably the third top goal scorer, maybe, I believe. I know top scorer was 13, then it was 10.
That was you, Marcus, at 10.
Oh, I don't know. Someone on the team. But I believe the next person below that was on 5. And the fact that it's coming from a defender shows that you were really outshining yourself. So we're always glad to have you. I'm done with questions. Anyone else got any questions?
Oh,
Right. Yeah. Bring it on. Rebuttal.
I just want to know. I just want to know. Besides me, who was your favourite person to play with at Putney?
Yeah, let's rank them actually. Who are your top 3 favourite people?
In Putney.
Yeah.
Oh,
people to be around at training. People to be
Top
around
blokes,
at training.
not just players. Top blokes.
No, but
people you
players
like the most.
Play like holistically.
oh.
You can't give a PR answer here, bro.
All right, I'll go from number 3, and then I'll go count down to 1. Definitely number 3, Geordie. You know, get him back in the football team together, bring him back to school days.
Bring back the good days.
And he definitely pulled out some zingers.
Bringing back the standard English days. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Number 2, definitely. Oh, see, it's harder. I wish I could do a top 4, but unfortunately, there's only 3 places.
I think I know
I'm
who's
going to
coming
have to
number
go
1.
with Ryan Laddie at number 2, coach extraordinaire, but also knowing the players that well, bringing that sense of collegiality and banter in it too.
That's true, yeah, that's a good
Oh,
point.
thanks, mate.
Not a big game player. Couldn't turn up for the
Brandon's my
ultimate
favourite
game.
guest. Brandon's my favourite guest.
And then number 1, and I think he definitely surprised us all by the end of the season.
The Milk King.
With classic quotes as earning chalky milk.
Yes.
Yes.
He had a strawberry milk kind of day, was Jim Gray.
It's my cousin, Jim. And I know you. You murdered him. I did not.
Jim Gray.
And from what I hear, from what sources are telling me, you're still in touch with Mr. Gray.
Yeah, Jim and I, we're still messaging occasionally over Liverpool or rock climbing.
Okay.
Good football chat as well.
Nice.
So,
Didn't you guys write a novel together, 50 something?
it's familiar. I just can't quite remember it yet.
Yeah, sure.
I think it might be in Thank Gonski You're Here.
Yeah. Yeah, he was an extra on that.
Oh,
bro.
quality.
We love
Thanks, Brandon.
Grays. Thanks,
Love it.
Brandon.
Love
Love to have you.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. You're a top bloke and proving to be a top football manager as well. So well done. All right. So let's have a look forward to game week 5. This is a crucial round. This is the last round of Group 1. So if you want to get in the beer receiver zone, this is the game you got to win. If you want to get out of the beer owing zone, this is the game that you have to win. So over to you, Tom, to run us through the matchups.
Yeah, awesome. Now, I will start with some little intel that I've been told. There's 4 people across the league who've played their wild card this week. 4 people that I know of, maybe even more, have played their wild card. But yeah, so huge movements across the league here. So start with Daniel versus Bailey. Now, Bailey's fortunes changed last week with a win over Lee. But Daniel is one of the ones who's played his wild card. He looks set to be even stronger than he previously was. I don't know if Bailey has done anything drastic this week. I don't think it will matter. So Daniel wins here. Bailey will be 1-4 and will owe numerous beers.
Ooh.
Nikolai versus David. Now, both these guys had big losses last week. Now, I did say that if David beats Brian, he really establishes himself as elite, but unfortunately he didn't beat Brian. But that ship hasn't sailed. I back David to bounce back here and beat Nikolai.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That would probably put Nikolai in the beer receiver zone if results go against him. A beer owing, sorry.
Possibly on points difference, yes. Yeah. Have to focus on points difference to keep him out of there. Now, I'm playing Brian this week. I'm not going to muck about. I play my wild card. My team looks sexy as anything, and I'm going to beat Brian this week.
Oh, love
Watch
it.
what happens.
Yeah, that's going to hurt Brian. That's going to hurt Brian. He probably looked at your fixture and thought that was an easy win, but not with a wild card.
Yep. Now, Brandon with us today is playing Sam. Now, both Mears boys are in the beer zone. And Sam, I think, will take the L against Brandon this week. It pains me to say so. I'm sorry, Sam. I just think Brandon with his 100, his team are going to really crack on now into the season. Even though Sam has scored decently in the last 4 weeks, but only has 1 win out of 5. And that's a story that'll be written about this start to the season. He had some good scores, but still owes numerous beers.
Yeah.
Geordie is against Luke. Geordie wins here, but I don't think his bank account will win as a result. He's well entrenched in the beer zone. He'll have to fight his way out of there with a big help from points difference, and it's not on his side. As Ryan mentioned earlier, he's the lowest scorer of the league so far. So Geordie wins, but he's going to be owing beers. Now, Perrin versus Simeon. Ladies and gentlemen, we will have an 0-5 team at the end of the weekend.
Yes.
Both these guys are 0-4. So the loser will be the sole winless manager. Now, Simeon was extremely unlucky last week. Even though he scored well over the first 4 weeks, I think he's due for a win more than Perrin is due for a win. So Simeon will win, but he will owe beers regardless. And just a message for Simeon. When you do win, the checkout time at the Owen Club is at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. So just leave your set of keys on the reception desk. Thanks, mate, in advance. Ryan is up against Tom Job. Now, two guys that have,
the most hated guest on the pod.
Yeah. The hated one.
The chosen one and the hated one. Now, these two guys have scored well so far, but I think Tom will finally find himself outclassed by Ryan, who is due to do some table climbing at any moment. So I think Ryan wins comfortably here, I'll say. Lee versus Parlay. It's an interesting stat here. Parlay is the lowest scorer in the top 10, whilst Lee is the highest scorer in the bottom 8. So it's an interesting matchup here that I think will be a bit of a table correcting contest. So Lee will win here to get himself out of the beer zone, whilst Parlay will regress back to mid-table, where he probably belongs. Now, Lucas versus Marcus, the hugest matchup of the weekend. Along with having an 0-5 manager at the end of the weekend, we will have a 5-0 manager, a sole king at the top of the table. Now, yes, for 4 weeks, the big daddies have known when to turn up, but 4 weeks is a small sample size. I think
you've never had faith in us, and we've proven you wrong week after week.
With his wild card, will outclass you, Marcus.
Ooh.
Wait, Lucas is playing his wild card.
Yes.
Oh my!
Marcus his wild card.
So
we're both playing our wild card. Yeah, that sucks. I thought I was getting one up.
That rounds out week 5.
Nice.
That's great. Before we come to the bold predictions, Marcus, you were saying you had some interesting stats that you wanted to share with us.
Yes, some stat chat. Basically, with the money that, or the beers that I'm going to be drinking on the weekend, I realized, well, not on the weekend, at the end of the season, I mean, I don't actually need to pay for them. So I put that money into buying a stat machine, which has spat out the following. In our comp, so this is, the machine gave me the game week averages from each game week that we played. So it gave us the average across all 18 managers. Obviously, if you're better than the average, you're doing well. Across all 4 weeks, there's been no one who's consistently been above the average. No one's gone 4 out of 4 above the average. We've had people sitting on 3 out of 4, and we've got 2 people sitting on 0 out of 4. Below the average every single week, Bailey and Perrin. No surprises. We've got... Oh, but amongst that, so Perrin is consistently bad, but he's never the worst. He's never been in the bottom 3 scores. So every single week, Perrin has been below the average, but he's never had a bottom 3 score. Whilst, who do we have here? What's the machine saying to me here as I quickly read through its output? No, it's actually pretty boring. So then the yo-yos of the group are the people who oscillate between being in the top 3 scores to the bottom 3 scores between the weeks. Brandon, who has gone with, he had the lowest score of the game week in week 2, lowest of everyone, 18th out of 18th. And in round 3, he had the second highest score. And in round 4, he had the highest score.
Wow.
So he really shot up that mountain. Whereas Durry went the opposite way. He went from the highest score out of all 18 in game week 3 to the very lowest score in game week 4.
Some honest chats were had
that.
between myself and the team after game week 2.
Yeah,
soul searching.
Yeah, for sure.
You really put them on notice.
I
threatened that the axe.
The improvement, though, in Brandon's team is so dramatic, it calls into question the legitimacy of the improvement, I think. Questions have to be raised. It's Jennings-like form here.
He's been injecting something into that FPL team, into that computer.
Yeah, very interesting to see the yo-yoers as well. But also... I
was just going to round it out.
Yeah,
we've got yo-yoers, and we've got... finally the vanillas, who are the people who never get near the top 3 and never get near the bottom 3. I know it's small sample size, as Tom likes to point out. Not only, and I don't know why I keep digging Perrin. I like the guy. Yeah, but he's consistently below the average, and he's a very vanilla player. Obviously, he's not going to be in the top 4. Obviously not the top 3 scores, and obviously not the bottom 3 scores. But amongst him also is Lucas, Parlay, and Tom Job, who just stick to that middle. Never getting top 3, never getting bottom 3.
Good on them.
Very, very boring managers. So that's all the machine's given me this week. I only paid for a small subscription, so it only gave me a few stats this week. But we'll see. Maybe in 4 weeks' time, we'll get a few more.
I love it. Thanks, Marcus. That was great. All right, let's head to our bold predictions. Starting with you, Brandon. What's your bold prediction for game week 5?
My bold prediction is going to be in regards to Sheffield United and a young player they've signed from Liverpool, Ryan Brewster. I have a feeling he's going to score on debut off the bench, but he's also going to get a yellow card as well.
Oh,
that's very specific.
How many points will he get then? Yeah, how many points?
He's going to get 6 points.
Okay. I'm starting him this week too, you know.
Yeah, you're going to get him in your team, Brandon?
Unfortunately not. I've played my transfer for this week already.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Ryan Brewster. We'll revisit that next week. Good stuff. All right. Tom, what's your bold prediction?
Yeah. So West Ham are against Tottenham this week. I think Tottenham will blank against West Ham. Won't score any goals. So I think Son and Kane are a no-go this week if you've got them. West Ham had a good defence last week against Leicester when they beat them 3-0. I think that continues. Son and Kane are going to blank. So 2 points for both of them.
Wow. That's massive. And that's bad news for me. There are 2 ways to take that. One, last week you said Calvert-Lewin would blank and that Morpay would blank, and they both scored. So you could be like a reverse curse here.
Yeah.
But also West Ham, interesting stat, the second best for chances and expected goals conceded. So their defence at the moment is very good. So it doesn't look like Tottenham will score lots of goals. So worrying. I've got Son and Kane.
Oh.
Ooh.
All right, Marcus, what about you?
I was going to back Aubameyang again, but I felt it's always a cop-out whenever I do because it's just that I haven't thought of anything else. I would go there. But actually, I think this is the week for Dallas from Leeds. He plays at the back, but he's been used in midfield by Bielsa. Wolves seem to suck at the moment, like not really getting that many chances, not really putting much pressure on the opposition goal. And like, as we've seen, Leeds have shown that they can turn up and actually get the job done. I don't think that they're going to smoke Wolves, but I do think that they have good potential to keep a clean sheet and possibly win 2-0. Don't think he's not going to light the world on fire. probably maybe get an assist. But just an interesting thing. I know that when we pick our transfers, we base a lot of stuff on the fixture difficulty rating, and Leeds have been reclassified. So now there are 3 when teams come up to play them. And I believe Everton have gone from being a 2, because they're always seen as like an easy beat team, but now they're actually good. I think they've changed as well. So not that it changes anything, but Dallas to get 4, 6... I wouldn't go 9 points. I reckon he'll get maybe 7 points.
Okay.
But that'll be the difference between me and Lucas. Because we're going to have identical teams, I reckon.
Yeah, right. I like the Dallas pick. That's good. Your knowledge of Leeds is going to come in handy this season, I think.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Good pick. Good pick. All right. So my bold prediction is Timo Werner. Lots of people have been frustrated by him so far this season. I have been one of those. But this week, if you've got him, is not the week to sell. He is going to score 2 goals against Southampton and get a double-digit haul. He's going to be on fire this weekend. Lampard's going to play him up front. Pulisic is going to start on the left, and he's going to have the service he needs to score 2 goals against Southampton. So Werner, if you've got him, and I know that a lot of people do, hold on to him. And Marcus is looking at me because he's just sold him on the wild card.
So
no, I got him 2 weeks ago. But do you remember when Lee said that if you have was it about him? He's like,
Lee said the triple captain Werner.
I thought he said if you captain him single-handedly, he'll win you the game week.
Yeah.
And if your game week opposition got a score of 3 and you did captain him, then Lee was right.
Yeah. Well, this week is going to be different. Werner is going to fire.
Is it because Pulisic's back, you reckon?
Yeah, but I also think Werner likes teams that play a high line. And I don't think Southampton will play the line they did against Spurs, where they were basically on halfway. But I don't think Southampton are the team that will sit back and defend. So I think that this is the game for Werner to get him behind and do some damage.
2 week. Well, that'll be big.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so that brings us to an end. This game week is huge. Keep an eye on the table. At the end of it, we will know who is in the beer zone to receive and who is in the beer zone to give. It's going to be spicy. Make sure you get your teams in by deadline, Parlay. I'm looking at you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Goodbye, my brothers.
Yeah.